Right now, we do have Congressman Mike Haridopolos, a Republican from Florida, joining us live from Capitol Hill. And Congressman, I know it's a busy day, so thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. And first off, I want to start by asking you what stood out to you about President Trump's speech there as he spoke for nearly 2 hours.
Well, I think the best part about the speech is he's educating America of how we really made progress over the last year. Not only do we have a secure border for the first time in 5 years, but we're also seeing an economic uptick, which is very much necessary after years of high inflation, interest rates, gas prices. And I think that positive vibe was there, and I love how he brought in, of course, not just our U.S. hockey team, but so many American heroes who serve our country on the front lines, whether it be during the Korean War, let alone, of course, our recent conflict in Venezuela.
What about anything in the speech that you were hoping to hear or be touched on a little bit more? Anything that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Well, he touched a lot of great subjects, and I think it's vital that we take a lot of those up. One of the ones I really want to embrace is the idea that congressmen should not be trading stocks. We should be focused on our job here in Washington, D.C. I'm really glad to see he touched on that issue. I think that it's something that, again, we need to restore the public trust. I think he touched on a lot of the important issues that are in front of us, including the SAVE Act, where it's just common sense that Americans should only be the ones voting in American elections. And like you do for anything else, whether it be getting on an airplane or buying a beer, you should obviously show a photo ID so we know that you're voting legally here in the United States. After all, considering I'm a U.S. history teacher, the foundation of America is a vibrant democracy, and I think that's one way we build confidence. After the Democrats distrusted the elections of 2016, obviously we had concerns about 2020. We want to make sure our election process is flawless and we have a vote that we could all trust with confidence.
What about the response from the Democrats? We know that we heard from Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. She was chosen to deliver those remarks. Two-part question here. What do you think of her being chosen to do that? But also, what stood out to you if you were able to listen to her remarks overall?
Well, I'm a little surprised she's talking about the issue of affordability. I mean, after all, under the Democrat leadership, you had inflation over 9%, interest rates got over 7%, gas prices were higher. Of course, we're in a very challenging situation economically and border security. I can go on and on. But Ms. Stamberger, what was really surprising, I watched a lot of her ads in the recent fall elections. She talked about affordability, and yet when she came into office, she immediately started raising taxes on things across the board. It was almost like Election Day was Halloween, where she took off a mask and was a completely different person. Look, there's a lot of issues Republicans and Democrats should be working on. One of those are the issue like space, where I'm the chairman of the committee. I also work with Democrats very well on issues like AI. But on issues like taxes, the last thing people can afford as they're getting out of this economic malaise is to see a tax increase or to increase the size, the scope of government, or to play games with reapportionment, which they're doing, unfortunately, in Virginia right now.
There were several Democrat lawmakers who didn't show up to the State of the Union. They chose to boycott. Then you also had a few interruptions, including one from Representative Al Green of Texas. Also, Representative Ilhan Omar was shouting. What do you make of that? Does that distract from the message overall, in your opinion?
Look, I sometimes have disagreements with Democrats, but I'll do it in a cordial, thoughtful debate, which really matters. I mean, we're supposed to be up here representing almost 800,000 people in our congressional districts. We need to do it with dignity and class. And what has been shown now the last 2 years by this congressman from Texas, who seems like he's more into grandstanding than actually working on policy, is unacceptable in my mind. And of course, Omar is worried about the situation in Minnesota, which is really, really abysmal given the fraud that's taking place there. I think we always need to show respect to the president. I did the same when I was the leader of the Senate in Florida. When Barack Obama did a good job, I clapped for him because he's our president at that time. And we should always try to support our president, because that president is on the front lines when he takes on foreign policy issues, and of course is the one person in that room who's been elected by all of America, not just myself in a congressional district or a senator from one particular state. So we always need to show respect for the president, and whatever happens in the future, I'll always show that respect for the president. Interruptions is just not what we should be doing here in Washington, and we need to elevate our game so that we get away from a lot of this tribal political action we've been seeing in the past few years.
My last question here, because I know you got to go. I wanted to ask how you feel about the Republican Party overall as you're entering into midterm elections. We're talking just months away from things kind of really picking up here. So how are you feeling about the party overall as a whole?
Well, I think, look, we could always do better. And both parties can do better. But what I try to do is I campaign on a few specific issues, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of backing those up. The issues that I talked about nationally, of course, were border security. As you know, the border is finally secure, and we're arresting a lot of those people who broke the law once they were here, in addition to breaking the law coming into the country. Second, we see gas prices down. That's a big deal to most Americans, as when we're seeing about $1 off per gallon, that adds up throughout the year. That's like another tax cut. And finally, we made sure that a big tax cut was in place. Remember, if we had done nothing last year, there would have been a 22% tax increase had we done nothing. So we think we're keeping our promises, whether it be at overtime and tips and Social Security tax cuts, and trying to make sure we gain respect abroad. And that means the border secure, and that means also toppling people in Venezuela who thwarted their thumb at the idea of democracy. And we're just really grateful no one lost their life. So in the end, I am feeling pretty good about where we're going to go in the midterms. People are going to ask, are they better off than they were a year ago? And when you talk about interest rates or inflation, or even your 401k is doing a heck of a lot better than they were a year ago. And we hope we continue that trend, not just for Republicans, but for all Americans, because we need to recover from really 4 years of economic failure with high interest rates and inflation under Joe Biden. It was just a very challenging time for America as they came out of COVID.
All right, Congressman Haridopolos, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know there's a lot of votes going on, so we definitely appreciate it.
Thanks for your time. Have a great week.